What up, everybody? Welcome to my channel, Project 550. My name is Sunny, and I appreciate you guys stopping by. If you guys are here for the first time, I super appreciate it. I hope you enjoy. If you're returning to the channel, I super appreciate you as well. Before we get into it, though, can I get everybody to do me a huge favor and let's get these formalities out of the way? Can I have you guys head over and hit that like button? Same with the subscribe. Leave a comment and share it with everybody you know. I would appreciate it. The algorithm would appreciate it. And let's go. So what I want to do is I want to make a video to, I guess, do a deep dive or go a little bit more in depth, or even, kind of just piggyback off the last video. No pun intended. And the last video I was, I guess, describing the reasons why I wanted to start a channel. And one of those reasons I felt really needed a little bit more discussion or more in-depth deep dive of the subject. And so that's why I decided to make this video. But very quickly into going through the information and looking at things, I realized that there was quite a bit of information. And I know it's not going to be just a 10-15 minute video. So rather than just some horrifically long video of me going on about the topic, I felt it's probably better if I break it up into like a 3 or 4 part series with like a couple 15 or 20 minute videos. So this is video 1, and let's get right into it. In this series, this first video, I wanted to kind of, I guess, define some terms or ideas that we're going to be discussing as we go along, and for probably the duration of my channel for some of these things. So I kind of wanted to just kind of contextually define some of it. First of all, and let me be clear, I'm not talking about, chubby chunkies or chubby butts or dad bod or, thicky Vicky. I'm not talking about the person that's a little bit overweight and can do a quick, adjustment and be on their way, right? I'm talking about food addiction. I'm talking about morbidly obese. I'm talking about health risk. That's who we're talking about. We're talking about dying fat, right? And, morbid obesity, I seen a video the other day with Jillian Michaels. Jillian Michaels, OG. She used to do those workout videos that everybody used to watch in I don't know, 90s, 2000s, something like that, many, many years ago. And she was doing one of those, 20 versus 1s talking about obesity and stuff. And she was going against or speaking with some activists from the body positivity movement. And she had said the word morbid obesity. And this girl literally almost burst into flames. She was just appalled and offended by the word morbid obesity. And the reason I think that she is so offended by that word is because, and she herself, and correct, if I mess up, I'm not word for word, but I believe the term that she wanted Jillian Michaels to use for her was fat bodied or fat. She did not want her to say obese or morbidly obese. And I think that's because she had become accustomed to be called fat, whatever, every pejorative of fat there is. We've been called every single one. We've, become almost immune or numb to it, right? But when you say morbid obesity, you're talking about an health implication. You're saying that there's a mortality, there's a death threat behind your obesity, right? So it's scary to hear that in reference to your weight or health condition. Right? So that's important. Another thing, everybody calls it a journey, right? I don't like to call this my journey. And that's just my personal pet peeve. If you're on a journey, journey away, right? But I was looking up the definitions, and journey is the act of traveling from one place to another, a process of personal change or development over a period of time. It's like, we embarked on a 3-week journey to find a mystical forest in Narnia. And battle is, the definition of battle is a sustained fight between opposing forces, a struggle to overcome or defeat an enemy, obstacle, or conflict, a determined fight against hardship, disease, or adversity, a long battle with cancer. It is kind of like the defining sentence that they give, right? And so, there's like words have power. So there's an emotional difference. Journey says, come walk with me. It accepts detours. It prioritizes feelings. It kind of often tolerates excuses and focuses on comfort and encouragement, which is all fine. If that's what gets you ticking, fine. But for me, A battle says fight with me. It says it determines accountability. It requires discipline. It accepts suffering as a necessary part of the struggle. It focuses on survival and victory. So it's a battle. This is a battle. This is a battle for my life, and I take it seriously. And so that's just another term that you're going to hear a lot is the battle. And that for me, that's my journey. It's a battle, right? Sorry, again, I'm not used to all this talking. My mouth gets like the Sahara Desert. I'm on a journey through the desert. My mouth feels like. So, and I'm going to talk a lot about addiction and the parallels between food addiction and drug addiction, and understand that this isn't just something that I'm pulling out of left field, right? I've struggled with a variety of you name it. I'll check the box of addictions that I've suffered from and been delivered from or overcame. Hard drugs, meth, cocaine, ecstasy, alcohol. Like I said, you check the box. I've dealt with it. So I think there's so many parallels and similarities between the two that it's astounding. So it's not as simple as, just lose some weight. I hear a lot of content creators or even, just regular people that are, they look at you and they say, or they think, man, there's just that dude's just lazy. He just needs to eat more carrots or whatever. Right. And it's not that simple. Right. That's like telling someone who's addicted to heroin or pills or something like, man, that guy, he just needs to stop taking pills. Or it's just not that simple. Right. There's a lack of control. There's you're struggling with real demons, you know what I'm saying? And, like I said, the parallels between the two are so similar. It'll blow your mind. And I'm going to get a little bit more in depth about that. I'll probably do a whole nother video about that. You know what I'm saying? Like across the board, withdrawals, cravings, relapse, So for example, when you're on a diet versus when you're on, hard drugs, like when you're using drugs and you're getting off of drugs or alcohol or something, and you're like, man, I gotta quit. My life is in shambles. I'm not going to drink no more. I put it down. I'm not going to, you know what I'm saying? And you're telling yourself that all the way to the check stand where you're putting your 40 ounce up there and you're almost shaking. And the whole time you're fighting inside your head not to do it. But it's as if something else is driving you to do it. Like there's someone else driving in the car and you're in the back seat screaming, no, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. I don't want to do it. And all the way there, you set it and you pay for it and you go and you drink it. And then you go through this guilt and this shame because you couldn't overcome the power of whatever was in control, that addiction, that spirit of addiction, that demon. You ever heard the term battling your demons? That's what they're talking about. And you go through the same thing with food. You're like, I've got to eat better. I'm going to eat less this and I'm strictly salad or keto or whatever it is. Can I get a number 7 on sourdough jumbo size with a Sprite? And then you go and eat it and you feel the guilt and the remorse. And it's the same. It's the same guilt. It's the same pleasure when you use it. It's the same, struggle. Prison or death is where you ultimately end up through drugs and alcohol addiction, right? And that's unquestionable. And I say that as being somebody who went to prison behind a drug addiction. Well, I've also been in prison behind my food addiction. And you're like, how did you go to prison because you ate too much? Well, if you think being 550, 600 pounds isn't being a prisoner to your body, you're sadly mistaken. When I went to prison, I spent most of my time in a cell sitting on my rack. I spent most of my time in my room sitting on my bed. When I was 550 pounds, spent most of my time sitting in a room in my bed or in a chair or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I didn't get to go out and do things. I missed time with my family. I missed events with my family on both aspects. You know what I'm saying? And ultimately, at the end of it, with drugs and alcohol and addiction, you're either going to go to prison or you're going to die. There's health implications. Same thing with morbid obesity and food addiction. If you don't get it together and get your life right, you're going to ultimately die. You don't see 70, hardly ever 60, 70, people that are 500 pounds. Lucky to see 50-year-olds that big. The outcomes and the parallels are similar. It's astounding. It'll blow your mind. The damage caused, the parallels, the damage caused to your family. Mothers and fathers lose the ability to provide for their family when they're using drugs and alcohols to the point where they can get their children taken away. Well, the same thing with the parents, so much so that a lot of times children have to take care of their parents. It's constantly sitting on the bed or the couch yelling for the kid, bring me my such and such. Hey, bring me my dinner. Bring me my da-da-da-da-da. They can't go to work. You know what I'm saying? 500 pounds. You may be lucky if you're, don't hit me up in the comments, say I'm 500 pounds and I have a job. I know it's not a 1-for-1 across the board. Some people can work from home. Some people can still go to work, but mark my words, it won't last forever, because it gets to a point where your body starts giving out very quickly. And you get from, I remember when I was 30 years old and 450, 500 pounds, I could still shower on my own. I could still, climb a ladder. And I was 450, 500 pounds. But only 5 years later, I could barely walk to the bathroom. Same thing with drugs and alcohol. You see somebody at 30 years old drinking every day, partying. You see them at 40 and their skin is about to fall off of their body and they're having heart conditions and they're in the emergency room and their liver's giving out. The parallels and similarities are astounding. It'll blow your mind. Drugs and alcohol. What do you do when you're using? You lie. You lie to your family. You lie to your friends. Same thing with food. If you think hiding your stash underneath your bed or going and spending the last of the family's money on Jack in the Box or whatever, and then coming home and saying that, you didn't, or whatever, those two lies aren't the same thing. They're just lies. And then you depend on your family to lie for you. The same with food and drugs and alcohol. When you're drugs and alcohol, your wife has to, call your work and say that you got into an accident because you're so hungover or so sick from being whatever. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with morbid obesity, the lies, you know what I'm saying, that you have to tell for your significant other or your child or whoever it is in your life that you're probably enabling, to be honest. You tend to lie for them. You know what I'm saying? Oh, he's doing his best. He's not eating this much. I don't understand. Whatever the lie might be. As a father, you're not able to be the leader of your home. You're not able to be the husband that you're, like for me, that's important because I'm a man of God. I'm a Christian and the Lord calls me to be the leader of my home. Well, I can't. It's difficult to be the leader of your home when you don't go to work. You can't bathe. Your wife has to wash your feet. Your wife has to cook, clean, and go to work and then come home on the weekends and mow the lawn, to change the oil in the car, air up the tire when it goes flat, fold your clothes. It's just crazy. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, and you're going to hear it so many times, the parallels and the similarities are so significant and so similar between food addiction and drug addiction. I don't understand why it's treated so differently. Food addiction is not treated as significant or severely as drug addiction. It's barely even spoke of to the degree that drug and alcohol addiction is spoken of. And that's part of why I'm starting this channel, is because I want to bring awareness to the two, not as a means of making excuses for anybody who's struggling from food addiction, but to let them know that I understand what you're going through and there is a way out of it. We have to fight. You have to fight for your life. This is a fight for life and death. I understand that it's not as simple as just making a diet. You know what I'm saying? But it's not acceptable either to say, well, it can't be done. The body positivity movement. You got people like this out here telling, just leave him alone. He's not hurting anybody. What about his kids? What about his wife? What about his mom? What about his dad? What about himself? You give me somebody that's over 300, 400, 500 pounds, and I'll give you 50 ways that he's harming people, including his community and his government and his home and his family. I don't care what his circumstances or situations are. And if he currently isn't, I'll show you in 5 years what he will be. So when you're saying leave him alone, keep that same energy when your sister Rhonda's strung out on meth or heroin, or when your brother Bobby's drinking too much at the bar and it's time to check him into rehab. Leave him alone. He ain't hurting nobody. He's just living his best life. Don't give me that. He is hurting people. He's hurting himself. He's hurting his community. He's hurting his family. So I think it's important to treat food addiction as aggressively in the same ways that you treat drug and alcohol addiction. In one way that, so for example, like when you have food and drug and alcohol addiction, it's important to acknowledge the harms that you've caused through your alcohol addiction or drug addiction or whatever. Insert here addiction, right? It's important to make amends. It's important to acknowledge. It's important to ask for forgiveness. Well, I think that's the same for food addiction. And so that's why I'm making this video, is because I feel like if I can put this video out here, right? And use what I learned and use what I do, my tactics, my battle, my struggle, my journey. And I'm just kidding. I'm sorry, folks. If you're on a journey it up. But if I could use all of that to hopefully bring myself, Lord willing, through prayer and fasting and all the other tools that I'm going to use, and I'm going to put them together and put it out there as content for your folks while gathering from others who are in similar situations, who have struggled and overcame or even not succeeded, and put all that information out there for everybody to have access to, as well as putting information and knowledge out there that people aren't putting out or understanding. And hopefully, we can really start to build a community that's worthy of fighting on the same level that other addictions are fought, because the similarities and parallels are so similar that it requires equal fight. And so if I could just help one person save their life or prevent them from causing the same damage that I've caused to my family and my friends and my community, then my last decade won't be for nothing. I'll be able to give some sort of restitution for my children, for the time that I've lost, for the things that I've neglected them of. And it starts here. And so we'll go more in depth into that in the next couple of videos. Next video, I'm going to talk about my wife and the things that she's been through and what I've caused, the forgiveness and acknowledgement. And then we're going to do the kids, and then we're going to try to do community and church and so on and so forth. Right. And so I'm not telling anybody how to live their life or what to do. That's not what this is, right? But if you're struggling with obesity, right, and any of this strikes a nerve or hits different for you, I just say, evaluate honestly. Be brutally honest about your situation. And if you have questions or you think, you don't know what to do next, or you want help or whatever, reach out. I'll put all my info out, you know what I'm saying? My email and all that. Send me a message and I'll try to help you the best that I can, but I will fight. I will fight with you. I will fight for you. My goal is that we can build a community where we're all coming in hot, going to battle and taking no prisoners. We're going to beat this and we're going to come out on the other side, skinny minis. No, but we're going to do this, right? Lord willing. And pray for me, folks. And I'm going to pray for you. I really hope you got something out of this video. And I'm going to be dropping the other 3 videos as well. So go and check those out. And again, folks, I really appreciate it. I hope to see you guys soon. Have a blessed day. Peace.